What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Help Me Hangout, where we help others move in excellence and Operation Red Rooster. Right? By now, a lot of you guys have probably heard about it. Definitely not the first to put a video out about it, but I thought maybe I can clear up some stuff for some people, and then obviously add my own perspective about GB and the situation and what I think may have led to the timing of the cops, making this sweep yesterday in Merced County. So first, the basics, right? Operation Red Rooster is not a federal indictment. I know a lot of times people hear of a sweep of gang members, and obviously it's a gang that's been targeted by the feds before, so it wouldn't be surprising. But that's not what this is. These are all state charges. A lot of these guys, including GB himself, will be at court on June 4th, right, in a Merced courthouse. And this isn't unusual. Almost 9 years ago to the day, in fact, in Merced County, law enforcement did a sweep, again, targeting the Northerners, and people with ties to the Northerners, used to be Northerners, whatever people's status is, it's kind of a crapshoot, who knows. But that one, I think they called like the Red Hand or something like that. And that was after a 5-month investigation. This one, law enforcement is saying, is after like an 18-month investigation. And that's probably why you have so many people with such serious charges, which I'll get into in a second. It's not only Northerners that they do this to. Shortly after, a couple years after they did the Red Hand one, they did Operation Scrapbook in Merced County, in which they targeted Southsiders, right? Mostly out of the Atwater area, which is kind of their area in Merced County. And I'll actually get to that because I think that's relevant. So I'm going to touch on that again in a minute. But so of the charges, right, 41 people got picked up. Again, it's all state charges right now. It's not a RICO case. But the feds can come along, right, of course, and pick up whatever they want. I don't really expect them to at this time. But a lot of very serious charges. The picture that's going around that has everybody's thumbnail or everybody's mugshot in it, right, has only 40 pictures. I'm guessing the 41st person maybe was a minor, and so that's why they're not included. But I was able to look up what most of those people got booked on, right? There's like 2 people in particular that I can't find any trace of whatsoever, right? But everybody else was able to see what they got booked for. And there's 5 people in this indictment that are facing murder charges, right? There's 8 people that are facing charges of buying or selling a controlled substance in excess of a pound. And a lot of times we hear pounds, and especially if you consider GB and some of his legal ventures and the Backpack Boys and just kind of the legal cannabis industry, you might think that's weed, but that's not the case. One of the people charged has a marijuana charge, but also has a controlled substance charge, in addition to that. Based on what the district attorney was saying, in terms of like no fentanyl and this and that, and based on the pictures, I'm guessing probably a lot of fentanyl and probably a fair amount of meth involved too. But that's a lot of weight, right? You got people that are charged with trafficking and assault weapons. You got some guy with machine gun charges, right? I'm not 100% sure what the state of California, classifies as a machine gun, but can't be good, right? And unlike a lot of these sweeps, a lot of the ones I've worked on in the past, right, doing defense work, there's a ton of people who get picked up with just violations or just conspiracy to commit a crime, right? And that's kind of how they get them arrested, and then hopefully they can get them to flip or whatever. In this case, there's only 4 people who, as of right now, are facing charges of just a violation, right? A parole violation or probation violation. One of those people is GB, very well-known rapper out of Merced. So we'll see how this unfolds. It looks like right now he's just facing a violation. Cops are saying that, of course, there's more investigating to do and all this other stuff. Who knows, right? I hope that there's nothing more serious than the violation. And even the violation itself is unfortunate. Now, why? Right? Why are the cops doing this now? Maybe it's because it's so close to the anniversary, so to speak, of when they pulled the trigger on the last sweep of the Northerners, right? And so they want to piggyback off that. It also could be because of Atwater, right? Next month, it's been put out on social media all over the place that next month, Southsiders, upstate Southsiders mostly, are going to do a show, right? I don't know where, like some kind of bar or club or something, I guess. And they're going to do a show in Atwater. And historically, Atwater is heavily populated with Southsiders, right? It's a small town. It's kind of north of Merced, right on 99. And, um, and you have a lot of Southsiders there. And a lot of those Southsiders are with the business, right? Historically, there's plenty of homicides going back and forth. Merced County doesn't get talked about a lot, but has been leading California in terms of homicides per capita off and on over the last 15, 20 years, right? So there is a lot of violence, and a lot of that violence is said to be gang-related violence between North and South, right? So anyways, they're doing this show. What makes this show a little different is this guy Bozo from Southern California, probably the best fitting name for a rapper I've heard in a long time, is also supposed to be performing. And he's had a lot to say online about the North and Northerners, and made up a whole bunch of stories and just, a bunch of hot air, right? And it would not surprise me if there wasn't some chatter in the streets about how to address that situation, in particular with him coming up here, just because of all the stuff that he said and this kind of fake persona that he puts on, right? I don't know that for sure. Ain't nobody talked to me about it. But based on my time gang banging, that's what would happen, right? People are gonna talk, and so maybe there was a concern on law enforcement's part that something bad was gonna happen to those guys, and one way to kind of ensure that the show goes on safely, or at least better odds that it goes on safely, is to just put the hammer down on the group of people that poses the threat to what they have going on. So I don't know that for sure. We'll probably never know, but I would not be surprised if that wasn't a factor. Now, when it comes to GB, I don't know what the conditions of his parole and probation are, right? Obviously. And, he's a rapper. He talks about being from the North and all that stuff often. So I don't assume he would get violated just for that. But he did a song recently. He was featured on a song by another artist named BFD, right? The song was called Enlighten. And in the beginning of the song, it was kind of a dramatic song, right? And got a lot of attention. But in the beginning of the song, you have the end of hostilities showing, and there's signs, right? Street signs, puro pinche norte, and BFD's verse was very graphic, was very aggressive, right? Towards Chitoranas in particular, but also just across the board, right? And then here comes GB's verse. And as a fan, right, as somebody who listens to a lot of his music, it seems like he was kind of responding to criticism. The criticism of, hey, are you really about that lifestyle? Because look at all this positive stuff you're doing in the community, right? Look at how you're networking. You got these business ventures, and you're actually not on social media talking a bunch of shit and being reckless. So, were you ever really that guy, or are you really that guy? And it's unfortunate that GB was put in a position where he felt like he even needed to respond to that. I'm not surprised because of the day and age we live in, and you become a high profile gang member by having a really, aggressive looking Instagram account, right? And talking shit online. It's very different than when I grew up. But it's unfortunate because just a year ago, right, a little less than a year ago, he was being awarded, right, and commended by the city of Merced and the city council for his philanthropy, for his community work. He's opened up a business in Merced. He's held free concerts and free haircuts and backpack giveaways. He's partnered with nonprofits out there that work with marginalized youth, right, to get them access to resources. He's doing a lot of good for his city and for his community. And it wouldn't surprise me if law enforcement, because they said they've been investigating for the last 18 months. So that means they already had wiretaps and whatnot, and they were already watching people and doing controlled buys and all that at the time that GB is being celebrated as this community, activist, if you will, right? And he should be, right? And that's important. And GB was very open about it. It's kind of pinned to the top of his Instagram. And we know that there are some, at least in law enforcement, that take the view of once a gang member, always a gang member, right? Once a felon, always a felon. Like, unless you rat on people and you become a junior police officer, you must still be in the lifestyle, promoting gang stuff and everything else. And we also know as a community that that's not true, right? That there are plenty of folks who get older and just choose to spend their time differently, and there's always going to be room for the 40-year-old that wants to run around with red rags and throw up gang signs and act like a teenager, right? And there's going to be those that's what they want to do, and that's fine. Let them do it and let them face the consequences for it. But that's not most of us. Most of the folks that come from the neighborhood look at that like, well, that's an ugly look. Like that is not what I want young folks in my community to look like when they're 40. I would hope they have better things going on for themselves. And GB is out there creating space for that to actually happen, creating lanes for that to happen. And I wonder if them seeing him be celebrated and then now also watching him in this video, which could appear to be like hypocritical, right? With him on the enlightened track. I don't think it was hypocritical. I think we're complicated people. And I think there's always a tension of like, yes, I'm from where I'm from and I've done what I've done. And GB, I don't know him personally, right? But it's pretty clear that he came up in the lifestyle. He made a lot of similar decisions as a lot of us that came up in the lifestyle. And when it came time to be held accountable for that, he stood on business and took his medicine, but that he has a bigger vision for his community, right? And in particular for the young folks. And that's what we're supposed to do. Back when I was doing time in prison, that's what we taught. That's what we encouraged, right? And yet now we're in this era where that's seen as, well, you ain't active. You ain't in the mix. Bro, not everybody's supposed to be in the mix. And you're especially not supposed to be so much in the mix as you get older. And that's not a bad thing. I say it all the time. There's more than one way to be a homeboy, right? And that doesn't make you a rat or a coward or a dropout or any of this other stuff. It means that you're growing and you're maturing and you're elevating. And I don't think that the people in that space should feel any kind of pressure to have to demonstrate otherwise. I think his appearance in that video probably did not do him any favors when it came time for them to decide who's getting snatched up and who's not. And the fact that they only picked him up on a violation when they picked up plenty of other people and were very open about all the charges against them. It's not like, oh, we picked up a bunch of folks on little petty stuff and we're going to hit them with the big shit later. They hit a lot of people on this case with some big charges already. I really think that's all they have. And I'm sure they're going to be pressuring folks that were picked up to try to implicate GB in some other stuff. And I hope that doesn't happen, right? I'm sure people are going to flip. There's always going to be people that flip. I don't expect GB to. It's a violation. Do that standing on your head. And I hope when he comes home, whether it's, when he goes to court, next week or whether it's a year from now or whatever, that he continues doing the community work that he's doing and that this doesn't prove to be a setback. Because I think he is a role model for a lot of people. And there seems to be a divide right now, right? Where you have folks who are getting a little bit older and they're trying to use their public platform to send a positive message, right? And to encourage people and to create opportunities and to motivate people. And then you have others within the same age group and older who are like, nah, fool, if you ain't out here flamed up and cracking threes and all this other shit, then you're irrelevant. You might as well be scum of the earth, and you're somehow less than. And obviously, I feel otherwise, right? I think that shit is reckless and foolish, and some people are gonna want to do it, and that's fine, and you could pay the price for it, right? That's how it goes. But that's not what we should aspire for the young folks in our community to look like, right? That should not be the goal. That should not be the end game. And again, I applaud GB for his music, right? In general, he talks about a lot of things that other rappers don't talk about, and he does it with skill, right? He does it in a talented way. I wouldn't say he's just, one of the best Northern California rappers. I think he's one of the best rappers, period. And things like this are not going to help him, in terms of his career. And so I hope he finds a way to still stay true to where he's from and stay true to his community and be able to look himself in the mirror every night, but also stay away from the kind of shit that's going to get you caught up when they do these sweeps, man. So, you know, there you have it. It's an unfortunate situation, but another lesson in all of this is, even if you're on the margins, right? Even if you're flirting, there's no 1 foot in and 1 foot out. You know, if you're kind of flirting with the game, if you're doing a little bit on the side here and there, you are likely to get snatched up, right? No matter how careful you are, no matter how cautious you are, no matter how much you say no to some things, but you just say yes to these things, but those things are still going to get you caught up. And folks have to decide if that's really what they want, right? If it's really worth it. So anyways, help others move in excellence. That's what homies do. Help yourself at the same time because you're worth it. Help your community because they need you. And again, man, I hope GB comes home and gets back to the person that he's been being in recent years in his music and in his community work, you know? All right, folks, take care.